Have you ever wondered why everyone suddenly disappears from your life? Why the calls stop, the messages slow down, the invitations vanish? It feels like the world is pushing you away. But what if it's not the world? What if it's Allah calling you back to Him, not to punish you, but to purify you, not to isolate you, but to realign your heart with its true purpose? Because sometimes the silence around you is Allah's voice guiding you. Not every disconnection is a loss. Sometimes it's a divine redirection. 1. Isolation is not rejection, it's a divine invitation. There are moments in life when we feel completely alone. People stop calling, friends grow distant, even family members, the ones who were always around, seem unavailable. And we start to ask ourselves, what did I do wrong? Why is everyone pulling away from me? Am I not good enough? At first, this loneliness feels like a punishment, like you're being abandoned, like the world is slowly closing its doors on you one by one. You sit in your room staring at your phone, hoping it will ring. You refresh your messages again and again, but nothing changes. You look back at old photos and remember how full your life once felt, but now the silence in your heart feels louder than any noise. You start questioning your worth, doubting your value, and wondering if anyone truly cares. But what if the emptiness you feel is not the absence of people, but the presence of a greater plan? But what we fail to see in that moment is the hand of Allah at work. This isn't rejection. This is redirection. This isn't a punishment. It's an invitation. Sometimes the most merciful thing Allah can do for you is to clear the room, to quiet the noise so you can hear what really matters. The loss, the silence, the disconnection. It may feel like the world is turning its back on you, but in truth, it's your Lord turning you back to Him. This isn't about people leaving your life. It's about your heart being guided back to the one who never leaves. What feels like isolation is actually protection. What feels like being forgotten is actually you being chosen for a conversation only Allah can have with you. An invitation from your Lord, the one who loves you more than anyone ever could, to come back to Him without the noise, without the distractions, without the need to explain yourself to anyone. When Allah removes everything around you, it's not to leave you empty, it's to fill you with something better. His mercy, His guidance, His nearness. He knows what you carry in your heart. He knows the pain, the confusion, the quiet prayers you never told anyone about. So He calls you, but not with a loud voice. He calls you with stillness, with silence, with separation, because in that emptiness, your heart will finally have space to speak. And it won't have to explain itself to anyone, because Allah already understands what you feel before you even say it. You see, when you're constantly surrounded by people, their opinions begin to shape your thoughts. Their expectations begin to cloud your purpose. And before you know it, you're living your life to please everyone except the one who created you. We live in a world that constantly demands our attention. Friends want replies, social media wants updates, society wants results. In trying to be everything for everyone, we lose ourselves. We forget our why. We forget our who. And the more we try to keep up with the world, the more exhausted we become. That's why Allah, in His perfect timing, removes the crowd. Not to hurt you, but to give you the clarity you've been missing. To help you remember that your purpose was never to be popular, it was to be faithful. So Allah in His mercy steps in. He starts removing people. He allows situations to break down. He brings you to a place where no one else can hear your pain except Him. Imagine the love of a Lord who doesn't wait for you to come back. He creates the space for you to return. He removes those who were harming your soul, even if you thought they were good for you. He delays your plans, not to destroy your dreams, but to purify your intentions. He breaks the things you were clinging to so you can cling only to Him. He lets your tears fall in the dark, Not because he isn't listening, but because he's drawing your heart back to the only one who can heal it. Because only then will your heart whisper the words it's been holding in. Only then will your soul cry out to the one who truly understands. There are feelings that words can't carry. There are wounds no one sees, but Allah sees them all. And when the world grows quiet, your soul finally finds the courage to speak. In the silence you whisper, Ya Allah, I'm tired. Ya Allah, I don't know what to do. And unlike people who may judge you or misunderstand you, Allah welcomes every word, even the broken ones, because He knows your heart before it even forms the prayer. And that moment when you're left with just Allah is when everything begins to change. That's not a breakdown, that's a breakthrough. That's not loneliness, that's spiritual intimacy. It's in that solitude that your eyes begin to open. You see things differently, you feel things more deeply, and you realize being alone with Allah is more healing than being surrounded by those who don't understand your soul. You stop chasing comfort from creation and start finding peace in your couldn't aside. They speak to them directly. That's what Allah is doing with you. He's pulling you aside from the crowd, from the noise, from the distractions, because there's something He wants you to hear. And it's something that only your heart can understand. You're not being ignored. You're being personally chosen for a lesson that could change everything. It's like a teacher calling a student after class, not to punish them, but because there's something special they need to understand. Something they can't grasp in the noise of the classroom. Allah is the best of teachers, and He teaches through moments of silence, moments of struggle, moments of separation. Because it's in these quiet lessons that your soul matures. It's in this divine classroom that your heart learns its most valuable truths. Maybe you didn't understand the tests when life was noisy, but now in this calm, you see the answers more clearly. This time alone with Allah, this is where wisdom begins. This is what solitude does. It silences the world so that the voice of Allah can be heard in your heart. And that voice doesn't scream, it doesn't rush, it doesn't overwhelm. It speaks gently, it reminds you softly. And if you allow yourself to be still long enough, you'll hear it. You'll hear that whisper that says, I am with you. I never left. Come back to me. That's not your imagination. That's your Lord. And He's closer now than ever before. So the next time you feel left out, pushed aside, or forgotten by people, remember this. You're not being isolated, you're being invited by the most merciful, by the one who never needs to raise his voice to call you. He simply removes distractions until you hear Him clearly. This is the mercy of Allah, a mercy that often comes wrapped in silence, a love that's so pure it removes everything else so your heart can finally focus. Don't rush through this. Don't curse the quiet. Accept the invitation, because when Allah calls you in solitude, it means He wants to give you something that can't be found in crowds: peace, purpose, and His presence. Psalm 2. Prophets faced solitude before strength. Because before greatness came isolation, or before miracles came silence, and before divine missions were given, there was solitude. This pattern isn't a coincidence. It's a divine principle. If you study the lives of the prophets, every single one of them, you'll see a consistent pattern. Before they stood before nations, before they carried out Allah's commands, and before their names were etched in history, they were alone, not just physically, but spiritually. They went through moments of total silence, total detachment, and deep reflection. These weren't accidental pauses in their lives. They were divinely placed stepping stones, because in isolation hearts are softened, egos are humbled, and souls are prepared to carry weighty missions. Solitude is not a gap between greatness, it is the beginning of it. Look at the lives of the prophets, peace be upon them all. Each one of them was tested with loneliness. Each one of them faced seasons where they were cut off from the world, but connected deeply to their Lord. This wasn't just physical loneliness, it was emotional, it was spiritual, the type of solitude that makes you question everything, your purpose, your direction, your strength. And yet, in those moments, something remarkable happened. They turned inward, and through that inward turn, they turned upward. They didn't lose their minds, they found their Rab, they didn't crumble, they were reformed. Their isolation wasn't weakness, it was a moment of spiritual purification where every voice was silenced except one, Allah's. It was in those private moments that their public strength was born. Before Prophet Musa AS was chosen to confront Pharaoh, he fled into the desert alone. Imagine this, a man raised in a palace, surrounded by riches, now running for his life. One mistake, one confrontation, and everything he knew was gone. He had no one to defend him, no crowd to comfort him, no one walking beside him. He crossed vast lands with nothing but dust beneath his feet and the weight of guilt and uncertainty in his heart. From the glamour of royalty to the emptiness of wilderness, it looked like a fall. But in reality, when it was a rise, he had just left behind the palace, the people, the life he knew in Egypt. After a single mistake, he became a fugitive, running for his life, unsure of what came next. He had no army, no followers, no clear direction. All he had was his footsteps echoing through the desert and his heart quietly calling out to Allah. That moment, that desperate, uncertain silence became the doorway to revelation. In the desert, Musa AS found simplicity, he found humility, he found time to reflect away from the noise of politics, power and pain. He worked, he served, he grew, and most importantly, he healed. This desert, though empty to the eyes, was full of meaning for the heart. That's where he started becoming ready, not in the palace, but in the quiet, barren stillness of exile. It was in that silence, that isolation, that Allah began to shape him. Years away from the noise of power and status, years away from the distractions of the palace, years in the wilderness, where the only sound was the voice of his heart being purified by hardship. And when the time was right, Allah spoke to him directly from a burning bush in the valley of Tuwa. Imagine a prophet standing in awe as a bush burns without being consumed, and from it, the voice of Allah addresses him directly. That moment wasn't random. It was the result of years of purification, years of solitude. You don't just wake up ready to speak to kings and carry divine miracles. You are prepared for it, silently, slowly. And Musa AS, in the isolation of the desert, was molded by divine wisdom. When the world saw a man in hiding, Allah saw a man in training. That moment, that conversation, that mission didn't come from the palace. It came after solitude, after separation, after surrender. Power doesn't always come from palaces. Sometimes it comes from caves and deserts. Sometimes it comes after you've lost everything. And in that loss, you finally gain clarity. When Musa AS heard Allah's command to go back and face Pharaoh, he wasn't the same man who had fled. He was now shaped, grounded, refined. His solitude wasn't a detour. It was the straightest path to purpose. And that's the secret many of us forget. Sometimes what feels like a setback is really a sacred setup. Before Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, received revelation, he retreated to the cave of Hira, alone. He didn't wait for revelation in the crowds of Makkah. He didn't expect clarity in the markets or majlis. He sought stillness, peace, reflection, and where did he find it? In the silence of a cave. Day after day, he would climb up Jabal al-Nur, the mountain of light, not for fame, not for approval, but for solitude. He separated himself not because he hated people, but because he longed for truth. And truth, my dear brothers and sisters, often comes to those who are willing to be alone with their Lord. He wasn't surrounded by companions. He wasn't standing on a stage. He was in a small cave, high in the mountains, wrapped in silence, pondering life. away from the noise of Makkah, away from the idol worship, away from the chaos of society. He would spend hours, days in that cave, just thinking, just searching, just connecting with Allah. That image alone should touch your heart. The greatest man to ever walk this earth, seeking Allah in silence. While others chased business, wealth, and popularity, he climbed away from it all, seeking meaning. The cave of Hira became his sanctuary, and in that darkness, light descended. Not just physical light, but the light of revelation, the beginning of the Quran, the start of mercy to the worlds. And it was there, in the stillness of that solitude, that Jibreel A.S. appeared. It was there that the first words of the Quran were revealed. Read in the name of your Lord. The moment that changed history did not happen in a crowd. It happened in stillness. The Quran, the book that would guide generations, began in a quiet cave with a man all alone, chosen by Allah. That's the wisdom of our Lord. He doesn't speak through chaos, He speaks through calm. And the first command, read. Not rush, not perform, not gather people, just read. And to read, you must first be still. That's why solitude was the stage for revelation. Revelation didn't descend in a crowd. It didn't come with fanfare. It came in silence, in darkness, in solitude. We often think we need a big audience to do big things, but Allah teaches the opposite. The most important event in human history began quietly. No one else was there. No cameras, no spectators, just a heart ready to receive, and a cave that witnessed the moment light returned to earth. This is how Allah works, privately, perfectly, powerfully. Why? Because the heart must be quiet to truly listen. The soul must be still to truly absorb. Allah knows us. He knows how easily distracted we are. He knows how loud the world can be. So He calls us into silence, not to punish us, but to prepare us. It's only when the noise stops that the heart begins to whisper. And it's only when the soul is still that it can finally hear. The Quran wasn't revealed to a crowded majlis. It was revealed to a heart in a cave. That's the message. You don't need noise to grow. You need nearness to Allah. Solitude wasn't a pause in their journey. It was the beginning of their purpose. We think nothing is happening when we're alone, but with Allah, something is always happening. You may not see movement on the outside, but your heart is being molded. Your thoughts are being reshaped. Your soul is being strengthened. The silence you're in, it's not the end of your journey. It's the doorway to your next chapter. Just like the prophets, you are being prepared in private for something powerful in public. We often think that when life becomes quiet, it means nothing is happening. We say, I'm stuck, I'm behind, I've lost my path. But Allah is never still. His wisdom is never inactive. What looks like silence is full of secrets. The doors that seem closed may be doors to a better destination. And the stillness that feels frustrating may actually be protecting you from harm. Just like a seed must be buried in darkness before it can bloom, your solitude is preparing you to rise. You are not forgotten, you are being formed. But the truth is, Allah does His deepest work in the quiet. He's not delaying you, He's developing you. The delays we hate are often the moments Allah is building something inside us that we'll need later. Patience, strength, tawakkul. Without solitude, these qualities remain shallow, but in silence, they deepen. You start to rely not on people, but on Him. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what is Allah trying to show me? That shift, that quiet transformation is the secret power of isolation. Just like the prophets were prepared in solitude before being sent into the world, you too may be going through a season of stillness before a season of strength. Don't underestimate the moment you're in. If the prophets, the best of humanity, needed solitude before service, so do you. This season of stillness may feel uncomfortable, but it's necessary, because Allah doesn't just want you to do something great. He wants you to become someone great. And becoming always starts with being alone with Him. That job you didn't get, that friend group that left, that plan that failed, it may all be part of Allah isolating you. Not to break you, but to build you privately before using you publicly. Sometimes what breaks your heart is what saves your soul. The closed doors, the empty rooms, the long nights of wondering, why is this happening to me? All of it, every delay, every detour may be part of your training. Allah builds leaders in secret. He builds patience in pain. He builds trust in trials. So don't fear the quiet. Embrace it, because Allah never wastes a moment, especially the silent ones. When Allah isolates you, He's not putting your life on hold. He's preparing your heart for something greater. You may feel like your life has paused, but behind the scenes, Allah is writing a beautiful chapter, a chapter that will only make sense when you look back and realize that silence saved me, that solitude shaped me, that stillness made me ready. Trust His timing, trust His silence, trust His love. Even when it feels like He's far, He's actually closer than ever. 3. You needed to be separated to see clearly. There are times in life when Allah separates you, not because He wants to hurt you, but because you're too surrounded to see the truth. Sometimes you're lost in a crowd, not physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And so Allah begins to clear the space around you. He removes people, He closes doors, He silences noise, and you're left alone wondering what's happening. That's when clarity begins. When you're constantly moving, constantly listening to others, constantly keeping up with life, you don't have time to reflect. You're in survival mode, not soul mode. And in that pace, you begin to forget what your heart truly needs. So Allah, out of pure love, slows you down. He takes away the noise so you can hear the whisper. He clears out the crowd so you can recognize your own face in the mirror. He isolates you not to punish you, but to help you pause long enough to find what matters again. That confusion you feel when people leave is not abandonment. It's Allah rearranging your life for something clearer, deeper, and better. You see, clarity doesn't come when you're constantly surrounded. It comes when you finally pause, when the voices fade, when the opinions stop, when your mind has room to breathe. That's when your heart starts to speak. And most importantly, that's when Allah's guidance begins to shine. We think that surrounding ourselves with more people will make us feel more certain, that the more advice we hear, the better our decisions will be. But the truth is, when there are too many voices, the heart becomes confused. It stops knowing what's guidance and what's noise. But when you pause, truly pause, and let yourself sit in stillness, your heart wakes up. It begins to speak honestly. You remember what you were running from. You see what you've been avoiding. And in that moment of stillness, Allah's guidance gently enters your life. Not loudly, not forcefully, but with clarity that pierces the fog. That is the kind of light that can only shine in silence. And sometimes we're surrounded by noise. Voices that confuse us, people who distract us, environments that weaken our faith. You may be in a room full of people, but still feel distant from Allah. Not because you're a bad person, but because the atmosphere around you doesn't feed your soul. There are friends who make you laugh, but they never remind you of the akhirah. There are places you visit that entertain your mind but drain your heart. And slowly, without realizing it, your connection with Allah starts to dim. You miss your salah more often. You stop making dua. You forget the sweetness of Quran. And all of it begins because the people around you are louder than the voice inside you. And sometimes Allah loves you too much to let that continue. Every day you hear 100 opinions. Do this, don't do that, be like them, don't change. You're not enough. You need to be more. And slowly your own voice, the one Allah gave you, begins to fade. You start living to please people instead of living to please your Lord. And in that noise, you stop noticing the quiet warnings Allah sends you. The signs, the whispers, the reminders. In a world obsessed with image and opinion, it's easy to forget who you are. You start comparing yourself to others, doubting your choices, and measuring your worth by other people's standards. And the saddest part? You begin to disconnect from the one voice that always mattered, the voice of your soul calling out to its creator. You no longer ask, "Is Allah pleased with me?" Instead you ask, "Will they accept me?" That shift from divine approval to public approval is what slowly blinds you. And Allah, in His endless mercy, starts sending signs, small trials, subtle discomforts, tiny nudges to turn back. But in all the noise, you don't hear them. So what does Allah do? He steps in, because His mercy is greater than your confusion. He removes what's clouding your sight, even if it hurts. He takes away the people who were softening your deen. He breaks down the plans that were pulling you further from Him. He interrupts the rhythm that was leading you into loss, not to punish you, but to wake you up. This is one of the most loving things Allah can do for a believer. When He sees you drifting, He doesn't wait until you drown. He intervenes. And sometimes that intervention comes in the form of heartbreak, separation, failure, or loss. It feels painful in the moment, but in reality, it's a mercy disguised as difficulty. That friendship you thought you needed, it was draining your iman. That job you were desperate for, it would have taken you away from your salah. That plan you built your life around, it was built on sand, not faith. Allah breaks what you think you need, so He can give you what your soul truly needs. Imagine standing in a dusty room. The sunlight is trying to enter through the window, but the dust in the air makes everything hazy. No matter how bright the light is, you can't see clearly. What do you need? You need the dust to settle. You need stillness. You need air. That's what Allah does with your life. You may think you're doing fine because everything looks busy, your schedule is full, your phone is active, your life is fast. But what if all that busyness is actually dust clouding your vision? Allah is the one who clears it. He stops the whirlwind around you, slows the noise, and invites you into a space of stillness. Not to waste your time, but to help the dust of dunya settle, so the light of guidance can finally reach you. Because sometimes, even the brightest light of truth can't help you if your life is too cloudy to let it in. He calms the chaos. He silences the noise. He pauses your plans so you can finally see what's real. We don't like it when our plans fall apart. We resist when things don't go our way. But sometimes Allah pauses your life because you're heading in the wrong direction. You're chasing something temporary. You're distracted by illusions. And in that pause, in that sacred stillness, you suddenly see with clarity. You realize that what you were chasing was never worth it. That what you were depending on wasn't built to last. And in that realization, you return, you come back to the truth, to the path, to the one who never stopped guiding you even while you were distracted. And what's real is your heart. What's real is your relationship with Him. What's real is your direction, your choices, your habits. And whether they're leading you to Jannah or not, all of the distractions around you, the money, the followers, the praise, none of it follows you to your grave. The only thing that matters is the state of your heart and the sincerity of your worship. When Allah separates you from the world, it's to bring you back to that reality. You start to ask, is my heart soft or hard? Is my time bringing me closer to Allah or further away? Am I building a life for this world or for the next? These questions aren't scary, they're liberating, because the moment you face them honestly is the moment your life begins to change. That level of self-awareness doesn't happen in the crowd. It happens in solitude. You could be surrounded by 100 people and still be spiritually numb. But one moment of silence with sincerity can awaken your soul. That awakening doesn't require noise. It doesn't require approval. It requires space. Space to breathe, space to feel, space to repent. Solitude is where the masks fall off. It's where you stop performing for others and start being honest with your Creator. And in that honesty, real growth begins. You begin to notice your own patterns. You reflect on your mistakes. And you start to reconnect with the one who never left you. When you're alone, you finally stop running. You start seeing things for what they are. You admit the bad habits you've ignored. You recognize the blessings you took for granted. You remember the du'as you used to make and how they were answered. And most beautifully, you remember that even when you were distracted, even when you were distant, Allah never left you. Back to the one who loves you more than anyone ever could. Sometimes Allah removes people from your life to bring you back to Him. Sometimes He pauses your plans so you can hear what your soul has been trying to say. Sometimes He puts you in silence, not to break you, but to rebuild you with more wisdom, more strength, and more sincerity. Let this solitude be sacred. Let this season reshape you. Return to your salah, not out of obligation, but out of love. Return to the Quran, not just to read it, but to let it read you. Raise your hands in dua, not because you've run out of options, but because you finally remembered who's always been there. Use this time to become the version of you that speaks less, but connects more, who worries less, but trusts more, who reacts less, but reflects more, who says less, but remembers Allah much, much more. Because when the world grows quiet, that's when Allah speaks to the heart. And what a gift to be chosen for that kind of silence. And so embrace it, grow in it, let it carry you all the way to Jannah. May Allah grant you peace in your solitude and clarity in your confusion and strength in your silence. Ameen.